Hello everyone, and in today's session we'll try our best to clone the Netflix website or the Netflix front page, and that would be a course project as well. This website might not look like a big deal right now, but the point is, first of all, this website is responsive. So if I switch to my mobile view, then you'll see that the website automatically adjusts itself. So this website is actually responsive, and it has some hidden features in here, like this text color. So having a text color with a gradient background is something that we haven't learned so far. And then creating a responsive nav bar like this, then creating a form like this, and then here are some icons that we'll be using. So even haven't discussed how we can use icons in our pages for now. And then there's this accordion stuff. So you see this when I click over it. So basically when I click over it, it shows us some details. So we need some kind of accordion. It's called an accordion, by the way. And then we need to make this registration form. Then there's this footer. So there are a lot of hidden stuff in this page, and I'll try my best to cover all of them. So let's get started. Let's get started with our Netflix clone. And here's my VS Code. Right now, the only CSS I've written is the basic ritual, and I've linked my CSS in here. And let's get started with the body, right? And by the way, I've also imported some images. First would be the logo that I'll be using instead of Netflix logo. And here's a background image that I'll be using instead of the actual Netflix image, the image of these movies. Okay, so that's it. So let's get started. So first of all, the first thing I see is that this right here, everything, including the unlimited Hollywood and Bollywood and more, and this nav bar with this image, I could say that this might be a whole container or something. So I'll wrap everything in a div, and let's call it the header of the page, the actual header, right? So now inside the header, I'll add a nav bar, and in that nav bar there are two things. First, this logo, and the second would be that sign in button. So let's add that using an img tag. I'm going to add logo.png. The alt, I'm going to write hspm, right? And in the anchor tag, I'm going to give it an href of hash, so it won't go anywhere. And inside I'll write say sign in, right? Let's save this. So nav was pretty much done. I'll add the CSS once I am also finished with everything in here. Now for the rest of the part. Okay, the general pattern that we'll be seeing is that we see here's this huge padding in here, right? So everything inside this Netflix page has this padding from both right and left. So we have to apply that style a lot. We'll be applying that style a lot. So let's say it's a container. Let's create a div, and let's give it a class of container. Okay, and inside this container, what I'm gonna do is write these texts. So for the first one, I'll write a simple h1 and write unlimited. And for the second one, what, not an h2, sorry, it's an h1. And then I'll also give it a class. So let's say gradient. And in here, I'm gonna write Hollywood, comma, and then I want to go to the next line, so I'm going to add a BR tag in here. Hollywood. And then add something like an ampersand, so ampersand A and P for the actual ampersand in HTML, right? Let's do this. So I guess our header is kind of finished. This is the basic header container. It's done, right? Let's look at a page that we created, and it looks something like this. So now let's try our best and style this. So I already have done my rituals, and the other stuff that I'll be doing is I'm going to remove the text decoration from all the anchor tags. So what I mean by text decoration is that basic underline that comes with an anchor tag. So now you see there is no underline to this anchor tag right here, right? But if I remove, if I, comment out these changes and save it again, what you will see that there's this underline. So that's what text decoration does. Okay. Now inside our, let's style a nav bar first. So in a nav bar, I'm gonna give it a display of flex, and then say that justify content. I'm gonna say space between. So what's it gonna do is that it will, put both the contents on the other end. So what you'll see is that this logo is in here, and this sign in is totally in the opposite side. So it's gonna add space in between the elements. I'm gonna say align items center. So it's basically gonna align the items in center. So now you see that sign in is now in the center position. Earlier it was, stuck at the top, but now it's in center. That's what it does, right? So I guess that's it. I'll also add a width of 100%. I know it's already taken width of 100%, but so that it's just responsive in mobile use. Say that nav image, the image inside a nav bar. Let's give it a width of 8 rem. 8 rem is basically 8 into 16 pixels, whatever that is. The size of the image has been reduced. Let's also add a padding in a nav bar. Let's say something around 1.5 rem. It's like 24 pixels. I'm quite happy with the result that I have right now. Okay, now about the anchor tag in the nav bar. So let's say that it has a padding of 0.5 rem and 1.2 rem. Then let's give it a background color of, let's say, fire brick. Give it a color of white smoke, and let's add a border radius as well. So a border radius of 0.3 rem. So it's basically 0.3 into 1.6, 0.3 into 16 pixels, whatever that is. So this is how it's gonna look. This is the actual page. Okay, the HSPM logo is a little less wider compared to the Netflix logo. Maybe we can, increase the size. Let's amp up to 10 rem. Yeah, so I guess I'm quite happy with the output I have here. You could also reduce it to 0.2 rem to basically get the same effect. The font in here in Netflix is different than what we had, so let's do that. Let's add a font. What we want to do is go to Google Fonts, and by the way, Netflix uses its own font. It's Netflix San. They use their own font, but right now I'll be using Roboto. I kind of like this font, so yeah, I'm gonna select all these styles in here. And once you have selected all the styles that you need, go to the embed section, and in here click on the import, because we are going to import it to our CSS. So basically you need this import statement in here. Let's add this to our CSS first, save this, and then let's copy this code. This is so how we are going to set the font family of our code. So let's put it in the star, so everything will now have a font of Roboto. You see it already looks way better than it used to, so it's fine. Now let's go back to this page in here again. So now I'm gonna style the header. And what I'm gonna do is add a background of URL, and this URL I'm gonna say this 21.jpg. See, so it does provide the background, but what I see is that this background basically covers almost 80% of the width. So let's go back to our tab first. So the second stuff I'm gonna do is, let's say the height in here is 80 vh. save this. Now you see it does cover the 80% of the width, right? Let's add some more attributes to it as well. So it's gonna be no repeat, center, and then center slash cover 0. Yeah, save this, and now you see it looks kind of better. Basically, the image is now covering our whole width, right? Another stuff that you see is that it doesn't actually look this way. The point is that you remember we did learn how to apply gradients. That's exactly what we are going to do. The top has a little gradient, then there's a lot of gradient, and there's a transparent, and then there's a lot of gradient, right? So let's apply that as well. So how do we apply gradient? We say linear gradient, add a comma in here first, and then I would say something like RGBA. So I'll start out with a little gradient. Okay, sorry, I did a mistake. First of all, we have to specify the direction, right? So it's gonna be to bottom, BOTTOM, and then add an RGBA, and 0, 0, 0, 0.5, let's say. Then it's gonna have RGBA of 1, 0, 0.2. Let's copy this a bunch of times so that we make sure that this gradient sticks around for a while. And then at the end, so RGBA, 0. So now let's save this. Let's check our page. So yeah, it looks way better than right now, right? Maybe we could reduce one or two of these 0.2s to check this out. So also give it an opacity of 1, so it's going to be black at the end. Just to make sure, I need to play with it, and to me it's fine right now. It kind of looks fine to me. So yeah, and the other stuff that I'm going to do is add a attribute to the body tag. So I'm going to say let's have a background of hash 000. It's basically going to be black, right? This is how it's going to look. Now it looks perfect. I hope so. Also I can reduce the gradient to 0.4 in here. Refresh it. Yeah, to me it's kind of perfect. The colors still don't match, I know, the logo and especially this color in here, but I'm not actually gonna use the Netflix logo. However, there's this tool you can download. It's basically called Colorzilla or Color Picker. So you can search for, Colorzilla plugin or extension, and you can download it from the Chrome store. I've already downloaded it. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna click on it, then hover over the color that I wanna pick out. So I'm gonna pick up this color. I'm gonna click over it, and the color code is now gonna be copied um, in my clipboard. So what I'm gonna do is replace this fireprint color with this color, and now you see I get the authentic Netflix color, right? So we have already wrapped the container. Sorry, already wrapped all the H1s in this container. Now what I'm gonna do is go to my CSS, and first of all let's add a general styling to the container. So I'm gonna say CNT container. Let's say a width of it's gonna have a width of 80% and margin of auto, so it's always gonna be in center, and then a padding of let's say 1 web. Okay, now you see it does have a width of 80%. The point is that it's gonna look weird in mobile phones, and we'll fix it later, but for now what we see is that it does work, and it has this width of 80% that we needed, right? Now what I'm gonna say is I'm gonna override this behavior and say the container that is inside header. So header dot container, let's say there's a text align of center. Save this. The text is now centered. Let's say it has a display of flex. justify content of center and align items center. This as well. It's gonna center. But the point is it's screwed up. So next thing that we want to do is add a flex direction of columns. So when we say flex, the all the elements are basically arranged in a row, but I can change that flex direction. The default direction is row. I can change it. Now it's like how it should be. All right. Now let's check out the magic in here. So let's set this justify content off. Um, let's say flex. Okay. And I'm gonna add a position absolute and give the header a position of relative. So position relative. So I'm gonna say bottom 0. Right. So it's now in the bottom. And let's give a left of as well. Yeah. The point is, you see that it's kind of shifted towards the left. That's because apparently we are adding a left of auto, but what we could do is we can say left of 20%. Save this. Oh, sorry, 10% actually. Now you see it's centered, right? So now what I can do is the container that is inside header and the h1 inside it. I can say, let's say font size. It has a font size of, I don't know, 5 rem maybe. The font should be huge, and it is huge in here as well. Let's make it 4.5, right? Let's be a little different than Netflix. Yeah, it looks great. Let's add a color. So let's say white smoke. I like the color actually. So yeah, that unlimited would now look a bit same. And now about the gradient text. So in the class.gradient.gra, and the first thing that comes to your mind is pick up a gradient, right? So I've already opened this website and I'm searching for this gradient, so I'll be using this gradient, this white tab. Now the first thing that comes to your mind when I say we can add a font color, so what we think is what we could do something like this, right? Add a linear gradient to the color directly. But the point is that when you see that property is not actually being applied, and if I inspect this, you see that this gradient is not actually applied. So you can't direct apply background color property as a gradient in a font. So that's not possible. Rather, what we can do is I can say that background has a linear gradient. Let's save this. You see the background does have a linear gradient now. And add some special properties. Let's save. Sorry. Bracket background. Whoop, and show. And yeah. So we need to, actually set the text color. And just in case you're confused about how to do that, and honestly, so am I. What you can do is you can search for something called in Google. Maybe that's what's gonna help you. At the end, we are gonna use this WebKit background clip property. But just in case, how to do that? So the point would be, you know, next TN color. Maybe this is the website. So you see, we need something like this, and that's exactly what I'm gonna do, right? Yeah. So let's not make it initial. Let's rather make it text. and then WebKit text fill color. Say it's transparent. Let's save this one. Let's check it out, and it's working, right? Just in case you have some doubt, you and let's say that you couldn't figure this out, or I couldn't figure this out on myself. So what I could do is text, and generally what I do is I would rather prefer something like a Stack Overflow answer. It always helps. So Stack Overflow is a website that you can always trust. And now sometimes it doesn't give the actual answer you need, and sometimes it helps you. So you can do that. I'm not going to use this right now because I already figured that out. And you see it's working. This gradient is totally working. Right. So yeah, it works. And let's check this page out. And it does kind of look nice. Let's remove the padding from here. The padding is 0. Save this. So I guess we there are some padding in here. Oh yeah, let's not let's remove the padding from here. And in the header container, I don't actually need padding. Say it has a padding also. Yeah, now you see it's totally down in here, something like the Netflix clone, right? So this is how our page looks right now. Now let's create this. We need to watch this text and this input tab. Okay. So let's say I'm gonna say it's section input. Let's say it's section input, and the trick I did just here right now, right? All I did was write something like section dot input, right? And when I press tab or enter, it automatically creates this HTML code for me. It's called Emmet. Emmet is basically an abbreviation, and Emmet plugins can be installed in VS Code or Sublime Text or most of the text editors that you are using. It's just a handy little trick to write huge HTML code tabs or tags. That's it. That's all Emmet I'm using Emmet for. Sometimes I'll be using Emmet, sometimes I won't. It totally depends on you. You can learn Emmet. Emmet is really simple. It's basically just a shorthand for writing HTML tags, right? So let's do that. First of all, let's create a para tag, and I'm going to just copy this text right in here. I'm going to save this. Let's check this out. Now the point is, you won't actually see the color, right? So in the general styling of my page, I want to do something else. I want to say color, and let's say white smoke. Now you see I do see this text, right? Now instead of doing something like this, what I want to do is I want to wrap everything inside a container. Okay, and now all I did was write just simple container. So when I write just something like this, it's on automatically wrap it in a div. But in case you don't want to use a div, that's the case, or that's when you also need to specify the tag. Right, save this. Yeah, it's inside this. The font size seems to be a little bigger than what we are using right now. So we could do two things. Either we could shift to an H tag or something, but I'm gonna stick to paragraph tag. And the next step that I'm gonna do is add this input and get started button. So let's add a row in here, and in this row what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna add an input, and type's gonna be text. That's it for now. See, I get this input tag, input field actually. And the second I'm gonna do is gonna add a button tag, right? And in this button tab I'm gonna write get started. That's it. That's all I do. I know this text in the button is not visible right now, but it's there. So just bear with it, and let's so I guess this section is over. Now let's style this. And you are the general styling or the general condition that you're gonna see is that your CS is gonna be a huge file, so it's gonna expand a lot. So you guys need to be ready for that, right? So yeah, that's it. So let's style this like something like this. So first of all, I'm gonna say everything that's gonna inside this section input. Say dot input. Everything that's inside this input, and then the p tag. Let's add a text align of center and a font size of let's say 1.4 rem. Save this. Here's this. It looks way better than how it did before. So yeah, it's working. It totally works, right? And now for this one, this row and this text, input type text, and this button, right? So let's add a row in here. And what I'm gonna say is this a display of flex, justify content. Um, let's center, add a width of 100%, and let's also align the items to center as well. Save this. Now you see that those two have already stick together. It's great. Let's also add a padding of let's say 1 gram. So you see that spacing over here. That's applied as well. Now the input inside the row. So row input. I'm gonna add a width of let's say 80% to it. Maybe not. Is it that huge? Is it huge? Yeah, it kind of is huge. So okay, maybe 60%. Yeah, it looks way better. And let's add a padding. Padding, that's a 2 gram. Is it too huge? Yeah, it's huge. Okay, it works. Now about the text in here, this email address text, it's actually a placeholder. So what I can say is, instead of writing an hard-coded text in here, using a p tag or something, I can say placeholder, enter email. That's it. Let's save this. Now you see this enter email text in here, just like this. Now about that button, I'm also gonna reduce the padding a little less, so it won't look this weird actually. I can write anything in here, right? So the color should be black, right? It's visible now. Now about the button, it should also have a padding, let's say 1.32 rem. So this sits on par with this. Let's add a background first. So it has this red color. Now let's remove its border and outline. So border none, outline none. Save this, right? Maybe you can still leave the outline in here. Now the point is it does kind of look weird. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to add a border myself. So let's add a border 1 pixel solid, and the color is going to be the red color that we use. Okay, let's increase the border even more. Now it fits, right? Yeah. Now we can also add a font size. Let's say 1.1 rem, something. So now let's also remove the border. Yeah, it's kind of fine, seems fine. I can remove the padding so that everything gets adjusted in here. So yeah, it also looks great. Everything's looking great until till now. Our clone page has taken its form for now. It does look a little weird, but yeah, after all, we are cloning the Netflix page, right? Let's go down here. And now the next stuff would be a promotion section.pro promotion, right? In this promotion section, all we write something like this as well. Let's do that. First of all, let's add a container. So inside an h1, I choose hspm. After all, it is the promotion section, so I can promote hspm, right? So I choose so I choose hspm, and now inside this, so we can either have an image or add our own disks, right? So we'll see about that, what to do. Right now, let's create an unordered list first. We'll see ul inside is some li, and then add an h2 in here. And for now, I'm gonna just copy this text, and after the li, after the h2 actually, let's also add a p tag saying some random text. Okay, and I'm just gonna copy this li a bunch of times, so I don't actually wanna write something a lot. Let's save this. Let's check this out. So yeah, it looks great. It's it's exactly what I wanted, right? So now this section is finished as well. So let's style this. Where exactly is it finding? So inside this promotions section, and just in case you guys are wondering, you could easily use a div inside of instead of a section. A section is just you know a tag that's been introduced in HTML5. It's nothing special. It doesn't do anything special. So it exists just for the namesake. That's it. So you could use a div or a section or a span. It's kind of up to you. So first of all, the first step that I'm going to do is add a margin of 2 rem from top and not an auto margin in here, right? So that's something I want to do. So you see that we get this space in here, this space, right? And you can increase the margin from for top and bottom a bit. Let's make it 3 rem. Now see it goes down even further. Okay, that's great. What else do you want to do? So now let's style all these h1s and all. So I'm going to say the promotion, the h1 that is inside the promotion. Let's give it a font size of I don't know what was the font size previously. Yeah, let's give it a font size of 4 rem. Okay, now it's huge. Let's also align it to center. Yep, looks way better. I would say looks way better than before. And now about the LIs, the UL and LI, right? So the list items in here, let's do something about that as well. So first of all, the unordered list must have a width as well. Say it has a width of 80% as well, and a margin of auto. So now you see it, it's somewhat here. It's already shifted a bit in here as well. So yeah, now about the LI. Okay, so let's add a padding to them in the list items. So we already get this space between two different list items. Let's make it 1.5 rem actually. So it looks way better than before. And now about the H2s in there. So let's say Li, the H2 in an Li. Check this. So yeah. So let's add a font size in here as well. So it's gonna be let's say 3.5 rem, just so it doesn't get as big as the H1. 3 rem. Okay. So you can keep on changing it until it kind of suits your eye for one reason, right? So let's do that, and it's done. It's officially done. Next thing that we can do is change the paragraph as well. It has a font size of 1.5 rem. It's increasing it little by little. So yeah, it looks way better to me. Yeah. So now what we see is that we need something like this, an icon, right? And this is basically the list style. Now, how do we set list style in HTML? We use some, or CSS, we use some the attribute list style, right? For all we have seen right now, that is we can use something like a circle or maybe something else. And if I go back to my page, you see that the list style is now a circle, right? But I don't want that. I want it to be an actual image. So there's one other property that we can use. It's called the URL, and you might be familiar with the URL as we have already used it in a background, right? So now in this URL, I can pass in the an SVG or an image that I've already downloaded. It looks something like this. This is an actual SVG file. By the way, SVG files are images or some kind of images that are actually created using XML or extended markup language. So unlike other images like JPEG or something, they are not actually created using pixel values. Rather, they are created using XML values and tags like HTML. Even if you check this SVG file, you would see that this looks kind of something like an HTML tag. It's this SVG tag with an height and width already set, and then there's the cryptic looking attributes and fills. So yeah, that's how SVGs are. You don't actually need to learn how SVGs work. But what we see right now is that after we do this, our list style changes to an image. And just in case you had some other image, you could have used any other image in here as well instead of this SVG, right? So this kind of works. Now for the next part, the FAQs part and these accordions, right? So let's create those. Go back in here, and I'm gonna drop this, right? So yeah, now it's I go like this. Now change. It's totally working. Yeah. So let's go here and let's create another section in here. Section dot queues. Sorry, queues. And in here the first thing that I'm gonna write is first of all I'm gonna add this container. Okay. Add an h1 in here. Write frequently asked questions. And now in here now we have two options in here and I'm gonna show you both of them. The first would be to use a pre-built tag in HTML. Okay, so there's this pre-built tag in HTML called the details tag, and it automatically works like an accordion. So we can use that. So I can use a details tag, and inside the details tag, what you can do is you can add something called a summary. Let's add this. Okay, let's do a tag. So here you can add this summary tag, and you can type in something in here. Let's save this. Let's go to a page, and you see I already get something like this, right? H1, write something in here, save this, go back. Okay, now you see if I click on this summary, if I click on this summary, I open this H1, right? So that's how details tag works. And first of all I'm going to use this details tag to create this, to clone this. So in this details tag, let's add a summary. Summary is basically the heading that you see right here, this heading. So let's say what is HSPM, and then in here let's add paddle tag and add some demo text in here. So if I go back to my page, so you see what is HSPM. If I click over it, you see that all this demo text, right? So I can create a load of that and I can directly append it. So that would be one technique, but I am not going to use it anymore. That's, I just wanted to tell you guys about that, right? Rather I would take the hard way. So I'm going to save this, go back in here, and from this page what I see is that I can create something like spans or divs and have another div inside it or something. So let's create our own something details tag or an accordion. It's not that hard actually, so let's try that. So first of all let's create a class. So accordion, okay, CMMARY summary. So I'm gonna write what is HSPM, and then again content. Let's say I can write something like lorem ipsum dollar or something, right? Save this. Let's go in here, and we see that this is how it looks. It looks kind of weird. So I'm gonna copy this accordion a bunch of times. 1, 2, 3. I'm gonna save this. Now you see we do have a bunch of accordions in here, right? Let's create a script tag, and then what I'm going to do is declare a variable, const variable. So let's say accordions equals to. Now until now we have only selected one specific element using get element by ID or maybe query selector, but right now I have a lot of elements in here. So what I'm going to do is, instead of using query selector, I'm going to use query select all, and query selector all is basically going to return me an array of all the elements it selects, right? So I could choose a class name and say accordion. Okay, and then I can say something like accordions dot for each. So for each accordion in this accordion list, I can do something like this, or I could have done something like for, let's say, let I equals 0, I less than accordions dot length I plus plus, and then write my logic in here. So any way you write it is fine. I would rather use the built-in for each method, and I'll do that for two reasons: A, simple, and B, it would be a nice time to introduce you to some of the inbuilt JavaScript methods. For each is one of them. For each is basically built for arrays. So I can save accordions dot for each, and then I create a name an element just like I assume an element in the for loop, like let I equals to 0. So I just name an element. So I'm gonna say element element, and then I create an arrow function. Okay, then I create an arrow function in here. So basically for each element, this arrow function, this particular function that I write in here is gonna be executed. Okay, so I could say um, element dot query selector dot, and what's the class content, right? content dot style dot display equals none. I'm going to do it. I'm going to just save it, and now you see that all the content is now gone. Then I can say element dot query selector dot summary dot add event listener, and then whenever I click on this summary, so an event of click, create another arrow function, equals to. So what I can do is I can check it out if add equals to none. If it is in fact equals to none, then I'll change it to block, right? Okay, else let's save this. Let's check this out. Let me click on this. You see, I see this content. If I click over it again, I don't see it. I see it, I don't see it. So we can now easily toggle something. So the hard part is kind of done. Now we also see something like this. Whenever I click on this, there's this little X, maybe, or maybe a plus sign, or maybe a little X that changes. So we can also add that. So what I'm gonna do is also add a span in here and write a little plus sign in here. Sorry, plus sign in here. So I'm going to copy this a bunch of times in these as well. Save this. Go back, and now we see this plus sign in here. And now what I want to do is when I click on this, I want that plus sign to do something. I want it to turn into an X maybe. Right. So if it indeed is a block element, so I can do something like element.query selector. Now I can just name in the element span dot inner HTML equals to let's say X. Give it a small X, right? Let's copy this. Let's copy this. Yeah. Where, and in the other case it would be a plus. Let's go here. It's a plus. I click on it, it's an X. I click on it, it's a plus. Click on it, it's an X, right? It's working. So it works. Now let's style this. So what I want to do is I'm gonna toggle both of these. I just want to use this one. So in the FAQ section, dot FAQs, and then the H1. So let's say it too has a font size of 4 rem. Save this, and also text align of center. It works. Now about these. Now about this accordion and all, right? So in this accordion, ACCORDIA, this accordion, I'm gonna add a margin. So a margin of, let's say, 1 rem and auto. It's gonna add some spaces between the accordions. That's exactly what I want. Even if I expand it to something, so it's the first thing that I wanted. Then in this summary, dot SUMMARY, in this summary, what I want to do is add a background color first. Say it has a background color of #333. It's this light gray color that you're gonna see. So yeah, and then let's add a padding as well, a padding of 1 rem maybe. Okay, it looks great. Let's add a display of flex, and then a justify content of let's say space between line items of center. Save this. Now we take a look at it. So both of them are at totally different, totally at the different ends. And let's increase the font size. Let's make it 2.5 rem as well. Does it look good? It doesn't look good. Let's reduce it. Let's say it's 1.5 rem or something. Does it look good? Well, it works at least. Yeah, it works. And let's add a cursor of pointer. Cursor pointer. Right? If I click on it, say this, it does something like this. Right? It totally works. Now about the dot content. So about the content, I'm gonna copy this and this. Okay, and also copy the font size. Save this. Yeah. So it's working, right? And the another thing that you see is that when I click on this, so it kind of has this little border in here. So I'm gonna add this in here. Let's say a border top of a little 1 pixel solid, and let's say 000. So it's a black border, little black border. Yeah. So now if I click on this, you see this little black border, right? So it kind of looks the same way. And this right here is the same as here. Ready to watch. It's basically the same as here in here. So what I can do is I can just copy and paste the HTML in there. The section input. That's why I named it as a different section, so that I could copy and paste it later as well. Save this. Let's check out our page. So it works. Right. Now about the footer. You see something like this. This stuff that you see right here, this is called a select tag. That gives you a lot of options. So we'll definitely cover the select tag. But before that, let's create a footer for our page as well. So in here, let's add a footer. Footer tag again is just a tag that exists for namesake. You could have easily used another div and given it a class or something. But yeah, since footer this tag exists and HTML wants us to use this tag, let's actually use this tag. Okay. So the first thing that I'm going to do is write some basic stuff in this footer. First, so let's add a container in here. Container. This container, I'm going to write this questions and all. So let's add a para tag or a p tag. Questions. And let's go back to this page and let's go back to our website actually. So since we are cloning this, but we are using HSPM page, right? So let's actually add the let's add actually our contact number in here. Right. I'm going to do that. We do see the footer in here. Questions. Let's go back in here, and you see there's a lot of hyperlinks in here. There are a lot of anchor tags. We don't actually need all these anchor tags. So all I'm going to do is, just create one simple row of these anchor tags. So let's do that first. So I'm gonna say a custom row in here, and in this custom, let's go first. Check this out. Okay, I don't even need to name it custom row. I can do this row that we have already created. Inside it, I'm gonna add some links. First would be FAQs. FAQ. The other one would be help center. Account. And media center. Let's save this and check out how it looks. It's gonna look weird, by the way. So yeah, this is how it looks. And then at the end, so I'm just gonna copy this a bunch of times because we don't actually have those many links, right? Yeah, so it does kind of look weird. At the end, I'm gonna add a select tag in here. The drop down basically, what you see is because of this select tag, right? So I'm gonna add a select tag in here. Give it no name and no class, no an ID as well. Maybe I could give it an ID of, let's say, language. Okay. And then you can pass some options in here. The first value would be ENG, say ENGLISH English in here. The second option would indeed be Hindi, and instead of typing Hindi in Hindi, I will just write something like this because I don't actually have a keyboard that types in Hindi. So now you see I get this select tag, right? And I guess it's actually outside of this container. Actually, everything's been outside of this container for now. So let's add everything in that container as well. So let's do that first. So yeah, so now everything's inside this container, and it does look kind of weird, but at the end it works, right? So now let's style our footer. Go down. So I'm gonna collapse these as well. fine. Now for the footer, the first thing that I'm gonna do is add a margin of, let's say, 3 rem and auto, so that we get this little space in here, right? Then add a border, so let's say a border of 3 pixels solid and hash cc, sorry, 333. Let's do this. Okay, a border top, just a border top actually. So we add this border top in here, just like this one. It's thicker actually in Netflix page, so let's make it 5 pixels. Yeah, it looks way better now, right? So it should be something like 8 pixels. Yeah, it looks great. The second thing that I'm going to do is let's actually change the font color as well. So the color is gonna be hash 333 as well. And now you see maybe that color has not actually been implemented in here. So when I hover over it, I see that color is white smoke, and this styling right here hasn't actually been applied. Now why does that happen? It's because we have already mentioned that the color should be white smoke, or this white color, and later we are saying that it should have a color of, let's say, hash 333. So that style is now being omitted by CSS, and there are two ways to do it. First, we could use a style tag in our HTML, or use a style attribute, and the other part is we can add something called exclamation important. But even then, the exclamation important won't actually get applied to it. What important does is it's used to override styles, right? But even in this case, if you check, if you see, then this styling is not actually applied to it, and still what we see is that when I check the styling, the applied styling in here, this styling is not applied. That's because CSS doesn't understand what we are trying to do. In this case, in cases like these, we have to be more specific about the color or the style that we want to change. So what we need to do is we need to say that CSS, we need to change the anchor, the color of anchor tags in footer and the para tags or the p tag. So yeah, I can do this. I can separate a lot of tags using comma. That's a CSS feature as well, and I wanted to show you guys that as well. So yeah, and then what I can say is I can say color hash 333 and important. Let's save this, and now you see it kind of works, right? Okay, and when I remove important in here, refresh this, it's kind of work. Let's check this out. So I see this is the color that's been applied to it, right? It's been applied to it as well. Check. Okay, it should be actually it should be footer p. So that's how you do it. Footer a, the anchor tag in footer, comma, the anchor tag, so p tag in footer. And you see earlier everything turned to gray. That was because, I did a stupid mistake. I said that footer a and p, so that p meant I'm just overriding the style. It actually should have been like something like this, and now you see it totally works, right? So you just need to be more specific about the styling that you want to use. So yeah, it's great. It's working. Let's go back to Netflix page. And the next thing we see is that now these don't actually stick, but in our case it does stick because we are at the end we are after all using the same row that we used, right? So I could say use the same, keep on using the same row. I could just say that justify content. In this case it's space between, right? Save this, and now you see it's space between. I could use space evenly, so that it also adds some spacing in the front and back as well. So yeah, this is how it would look, and it does look kind of different, just because of that, because all the rows are same in our case, right? And now let's actually get back to our little drop down in here. So I'm gonna still gonna keep it space between, actually. Rather, what I would do is the container in the footer. So footer dot container. I'll say that it has a width of 60%. Let's say. Sorry, width. Say 60%. Yeah, it's 60, not 50. Save this, and it looks way better than that, right? Okay. And now about the select tag in here, style that as well. So I'm gonna say footer. Sorry, it's gonna be select. Let's add a padding to it, so it's has to be a padding of 1.2. And let's say you see it already got some padding, some nice little padding. Let's add a background as well. A background of, let's say, has 000. It's gonna be black, right? Then actually a border 1 pixel solid, and this hash 333 that we are using, and it has an outline of none, so it has no outline at all. Let's save this. So it looks way better, right? And at the end, let's add something else. So I'm just gonna add a little para tag in here saying HSPM. Sorry, and keeps happening to me. Solutions. So let's save this. Let's so let's also add a margin to our select tag. Margin 0.5 rem space auto. Yeah. So this is kind of a Netflix clone page, and here's a bonus for you guys, just to make sure that it actually resembles the Netflix page to an extent. I'll just collapse these first. Now what we can do is um, the header, we can change the background. I've already downloaded the next Netflix image for you guys so that we can actually check it out. Here's this. Let's save our page, and now you see this is the clone that we created. This is the Netflix clone that we created, and this is the actual Netflix page, right? It's our version. Here's this version. Okay. And if I change this container to now 60%, so this is our page right now. Some of the stylings got a little icky. Let me fix that real fast. So gonna be like 15%, right? Okay, it's 20%, sorry. Right, but everything else looks good. This is our Netflix clone. This is the actual Netflix page. Ours look good as well. These accordions working properly. Everything else is working just fine, It's great. Now the other problem that you're gonna see is that we have already created a nice desktop view, but when I change it, so when I go back to mobile view, this page is responsive, like, right? Most of the page is responsive. And now when I go to our page, would see a really weird problem. We would start to see something really weird. First of all, there's some overflow, then all of this stuff is not responsive at all, right? Now we need to fix that. How are we gonna fix that? We are gonna use something called the media queries. So just like @ keyframes, we also have something called @ media. So I'm gonna say @ media and then specify a max width. Max width basically means the width. So we are gonna write some changes in here, and what we can do with max width is that we can specify up to this width, this particular set of you know CSS properties will be applied, and after that this particular CSS properties will be applied, right? So let's see, check that out. So I can say max width max width of, let's say, 767 pixel, and I just happen to know the size of large devices at 760, medium devices at 767 pixels. You can play around, fool around with the width and the height, and then figure out the one that suits you. But the basic would be 767 pixels because that's the width for medium devices. Okay, let's start with something basic. So I can say something like color equals to red, and I need to specify a tag first, a property first. So I could say star, and let's say colored red. Okay, save this. Let's go back. Now you see everything's red in here, but as soon as I change my width, everything's white. So I can keep on reducing my width. Let's go here. I can keep on reducing my width, and as soon as it goes below 767 pixels, let's check this out really carefully. 766, right? So it's red now. Okay, so that's what we need to keep in mind. So let's go back to our mobile view. Okay, so the first thing that we need to do is the font. We need to say that we need to play around with the container. So our container will now have a width of, let's say, 100% first of all. Sorry, it's gonna be 100%, and a lot of stuff fixes itself automatically. Here the only stuff that's weird is this little unlimited thing, because it has a position of absolute. So we are gonna fix that. So this header container, so this container inside the header, let's also fix that. So I'm gonna say header and the container inside that. It's gonna have a left of, let's say, 0. Save this. Now if we check this out, it's working, right? The buttons are still weird. So what we are gonna do is that when we shift to a mobile view, so when we shift to a mobile device, I want this email to take full width and the button to take the full width as well. So what I can say is row input takes 100% of its width, right? So I can say row, then input, or dot input, it's just input, I guess. Yeah, and it takes a width of 100%. Save this. Let's check this out real quick. Okay, it does take a width of 100%, but the stylings are not being applied then. What could be the reason be? Well, uh, maybe it just happens that this doesn't work this way, right? So I also have to say that the button takes 100% as well. Maybe let's try that as well. And copy this, change it to button. Save this, right? So now everything takes 100% of its width. It's totally responsive now, there's no overflow. And this page right in here, this one, right? The footer is kind of weird right now. That's because the footer container also has a width of okay, I don't need it actually right now actually. Let's save this. The footer is now fixed. We go back. I see the whole page is now fixed. And even when I transition to smaller devices, this web page is totally responsive. It acts according to the size of the width of the device, right? So yeah, here's our Netflix clone. Here's our clone on Netflix, and here's actual Netflix, right? So there are still some differences in here that we didn't fix after all, like this margin and padding. I actually like adding some, having some padding even when I'm into mobile view. That's just a preference. Just in case you don't, you can remove that padding from uh, here as well using media queries. But yeah, that's the basic. That's how we do it. That's how we clone a website, and we have clone a website, right? So the last thing that I want to show you guys is this thing. That's this right here is called a favicon. So you get this little nice icon on your tab or on the top of a web page. Right now we don't have it for our website. Let's add that. So what I want to do is I want to go up here in my head, somewhere around below title or something. Then just the way I added a style sheet using link, I'm gonna add a favicon, right? So the rel would be a shortcut icon, and in here I'm gonna pass the path of the image. So I'm gonna add logo.png. Let's save this, and now you see I get this little favicon in here as well. This is the same favicon that I have used for HSPM. In HSPM we use a different image actually, so you can add any image that you want, and you can use any image as a favicon, right? So this is our little page that we cloned as Netflix. Let me know if you guys have any questions you want to ask me, or any doubt or any concern. Maybe you didn't understand a part or something, but this right here is our little Netflix clone. And that would be it from my side. Thank you guys. It's been a pleasure meeting you, and it's been a pleasure interacting with you guys. You guys have, like always, have been really awesome. Thank you guys.